am Adonica Coleman, your host for today. On behalf of NTT Data, I want to welcome everyone to the fourth event in a series of 6 digital transformation journey stops along Route 66. If you have not joined us previously, we've been sharing insights from diverse characters that paved the Route 66 highway and digital leaders who are focused on solutions that help you pave a more beautiful future for your organizations. In January, we explored the great state of Texas, the headquarters of NTT Data. We talked about exploring the human side of digital transformation with a discussion about diversity and employee engagement. And if you missed it, here's a quick video recap.
Well, at C5, we want to be leaders in the community, and it's up to us to provide that gateway and resources for them.
NTT Data's Leaders Decision, donating $5,000 to the C5 Texas. Let's go on a tour. We work with consultants, clients, and team members to help solve some of their toughest business challenges. Whether in a physical or virtual engagement, our innovation studios are designed to help empower your business.
Tell me a little bit about how your focus on diversity really impacts your day-to-day role.
And the mission there is to really drive diversity throughout our organization and promote an inclusive culture with our team members, with our customers, as well as our business partners in the community.
Welcome to Texas, the largest cross. This is Groom, Texas. Big Texan is famous for one thing. That's the 72-ounce steak. This is the Cadillac Ranch, made famous by Bruce Springsteen's song.
It's been an awesome series so far. Well, this time we have some new NTT Data executives joining us. Bennett Indart, the VP of NTT Smart World, Shamlan Siddiqi, the VP of Data as an Asset, and Corie Pierce, the VP of Corporate Communications and Pride Employee Resource Executive Sponsor. Welcome, everyone. So today, we are in the great state of Arizona, and we'll be making a detour through Nevada. Here is a map of where we're going on our journey together today. So Shamlan will be exploring smart racing and smart technology solution venues with legendary NTT IndyCar Series driver and owner. Next, Bennett has 2 of our smart solution clients joining him to share some of the solutions they have implemented and are planning to deploy in order to improve public services and make people safer and improve collaboration. Then our resident Route 66 historian, Dan Rice, will show you some interesting stops along the Route 66 highway in Arizona. Corie will wrap us up by sharing with us what her employee resource group is doing to support diversity and inclusion. We have an action-packed agenda, so let's get started. Shamlan, let me turn it over to you to introduce our first guest.
Yeah, thanks, Adonica. I appreciate it. Exciting times here. So our virtual Route 66 special guest today finds himself in the unique position of being the only individual in the NTT IndyCar series with a dual role of a team owner and active driver, which is really cool. He's actually preparing for his 20th season as an IndyCar driver and 11th as a team owner for this 2-car organization. His IndyCar career is highlighted by 3 victories to go along with 3 pole positions in the prestigious Indianapolis 500. Please welcome Ed Carpenter, the driver of the number 20 Chevrolet car for Ed Carpenter Racing. Wow, I wish I could be in one of those cars, to be honest. So, Ed, the reason why we have you on the event today is because you are probably one of the smartest drivers on the circuit. So with that, I'm going to ask you a few questions and sort of have a little discussion. So I want to start with, since kind of I'm in the data world, and you in some ways are also in the data world, you've been doing this for a long time, right? So how have the data insights that you get have changed from when you started in 2003 to today?
I mean, certainly a lot's changed. In some ways, the amount of data that we receive from the car hasn't changed a ton, but the way we can view it, receive it, analyze it has changed a ton. So, early in my career, if we're looking at data, a lot of it would be literally I'd be sitting in the car, they'd print out a piece of paper and give it to me. Now they're sending things to me on a tablet and, communicating real time with my engineers on the timing stand and more quickly seeing what they're seeing as we're working through changes and analyzing everything. Same thing on the timing and scoring front. Used to not see any of that till you got out of the car. Now I can see it real time. And even with the NTT data app, that's really designed for the fans. It's something that I use at the track, especially at Indy, being able to see competitors, some of their data that's live streamed, following conditions and what gears they're running, things like that, just trying to pick up any little edge you can. So I'd say the biggest single thing is just much more accessibility and being able to quickly analyze things versus in the past, a much slower, more tedious process.
Oh, great. Yeah. Speed, scale, flexibility, accessibility, absolutely critical. So, NTT Data has worked with Penske to develop smart technologies for IndyCar drivers and fans at the venue. I think you alluded to it a little bit earlier. So how do you see smart technologies changing the game for drivers, owners, and fans?
I mean, I think obviously for us as a team, just being able, we always have more data available to us than what we can really process and turn into a benefit to making the cars faster. So we're always trying to become more efficient with, processing and the data management to be able to spit out, quick and easy solutions and answers. I think there's tons of opportunity there for us as teams and drivers and engineers, but I think on the external side, from the fan base and connecting and, catering to our current fans and drawing in more fans, I think that's where some of the coolest things arrive from. Like I see it when I'm watching, when I was watching the Super Bowl, and it's the same way with us. Just everybody wants more interaction as they're consuming any media. So, being able to keep adding layers to that and just giving them more insight and looking and viewing things and educating them more on what's happening in the race, whether it's with the strategy, the performance of the cars, it's definitely just makes it even more entertaining than our sport already is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fan engagement is key for everyone, right? Happy fans, happy everybody.
Yeah.
So, switching gears a little bit, that's a little bit on the technology side, but, I want to talk a little bit about you. So you're in quite the rare position of being the only driver owner in the sport. What was the impetus for you to venture into the ownership side of the business, when you formed the team in 2011 and were competing by the next season?
Yeah, it kind of just happened in a way. I had always thought about team ownership at some level earlier in my career. From 2005 to 2009, I drove for a team that my family owned, but I didn't have ownership. I kind of thought maybe someday I would take over ownership of that, but we ended up shutting it down, or my family did. And then I drove for another team and was fortunate enough, really, it came about from a partner, sponsor, friend that I had been working on a personal level, and he came to me and he's like, "Hey, I think we should start a team." And my initial reaction was like, I don't know if I really want to be driving and owning, but the more I thought about it, talked about it with my wife, it was an opportunity that may have been a one-time only thing, and I knew that I wanted to do it eventually. So took the leap, and we started the team in 2012. We've been here 10 years now, and looking forward to many more decades. And I get asked a lot how long I'm going to continue in this dual role, and I don't know the answer to that. I always joke that drivers aren't exactly like milk cartons. We don't have an expiration date stamped on us, but as long as I'm still fast and competitive at Indianapolis, I'll likely continue to keep driving and chasing that Indy 500 win, and then hopefully we'll continue in team ownership for a long time after whenever that day comes.
Absolutely, a true sportsman always, right? And never give up hope, and keep striving for the true North Star. So that's good. But to that end, right? I mean, the fact that you are juggling both and you want to continue to drive that down, given your dual role, time management is something that we can all relate to, right? Within our business, our clients' business that are on the call here today, and when it comes to our profession. So do you have any tips on how you manage the demands, especially on race weekends when you're driving and dealing with team ownership responsibilities all at the same time?
For me, the biggest thing is just compartmentalizing. And, I have two totally different jobs, what I do and how I prepare as a driver, and what I need to do on the team side of things and with the business. They're totally different. So really, for me, I schedule everything like most of us these days, but I try to not go back and forth from one to the other. So if we're in season and it's a weekend where I'm in the car, I really just kind of put blinders on, and I have a great team around me that a lot of us have been together all 10 years. And when I'm in my driver hat, so to speak, I really just stay in my lane and don't worry about things that I would worry about in a weekend that I'm not driving. And it's a little easier to do when I'm not driving, probably, just to focus on other tasks and related to the business. But yeah, just compartmentalizing. And I think you're going to get to some maybe later, kind of the fact that I graduated from Butler University. And that's one of the things I say that I learned most out of a college, because at the time then I was a full-time student and full-time race car driver, and learning how to manage my time back then, with how I was being a student and how I was being a driver, it really correlates to now being a driver and a team owner. So I think the dual role that I had back then, not really thinking that I was going to be in a dual role later, was a really good lesson in time management for me.
Oh, that's awesome. So, anecdote, I tried compartmentalizing from work back to home with my 8-year-old daughter. My wife tells me, stop compartmentalizing, go back to work, because clearly that dual thing isn't working there. But no, that's good. So can you, given the experience that you've had for some time now as a business owner, right? Can you share with us some of the top lessons you've learned on building your own business and being able to sustain it for more than a decade?
Oh, there's many. I think one of the biggest things for me was just learning how to manage the stress and anxiety that can come with being responsible for a business and your employees. That the number one thing for me is probably the culture that we have, and making a workplace that people want to be a part of and work at. And to me, that directly correlates into having low turnover. And back in 2012, I think we had about 17 people that worked for the team our first season, and we're just over double that now. And I think we're around 11 of those original 17 are still with us. So that's something I'm really proud of. And I think our people are our number one asset. So definitely try to put a lot of emphasis, not just in making cars fast, but making sure that the people that make our cars fast are engaged and happy and with the environment that they have at Ed Carpenter Racing, because ultimately I think that gives us consistency on track.
Oh, spot on. People first, culture, all absolutely critical to engaging the employees and long-term success. So as a native Hoosier, the Indianapolis 500 and historic Indianapolis Motor Speedway have a special place in your heart. For those who have never attended an IndyCar race, why is the Indy 500 a bucket list sporting event to attend?
You would think I would have a beautiful, very eloquent answer to this question, but it's a hard one to answer. I think someone has to just come to the Indy 500 to fully experience it. I don't think there's anything that you can do to put into words to feel the energy of what it's like being there. Racing, to me, it's similar to hockey, where watching it on TV just doesn't really do the sport justice. You come to an event, then I think you can watch it on TV and have a different appreciation. But it's the largest single-day sporting event in the world. So when the place is at capacity, over 300,000 people, walking out pre-race, just it's an amazing experience. So, I don't know that I can really put it in the right words, but it's something that you just have to trust it when people say it, that it's a chance in a lifetime to come to it. And then you want to come back every other year because there's an electricity there. And I think there's not many events that have been around for over 100 years. So, you can't just create tradition and history. It's something that just has to grow and develop. And, some of the legacy of it and the history is what makes it special. And you can just feel that as a spectator or participant when you're there.
Yeah, no, great. Absolutely. Definitely a bucket list item for many, including myself.
Yeah, you gotta get there.
Absolutely. So, talking a little bit about sort of the current state of where we are, the world we live in today, right? The pandemic, so when the pandemic shut down the world of sports, which unfortunately it had an impact, it had a major economic impact on all those involved. Right. So how did it affect your business, and how did you overcome some of the financial obstacles and other obstacles that came with it?
Yeah, it was, I try to not think back about it too much because it was just so crazy. But for us, we were actually in St. Petersburg getting ready for our first practice session of the first race of the season. And then everything just stopped, and we were flying home and figuring out how to get people home and trying to understand what was happening. But, really for the next 5 months, it felt like we were living kind of a day-to-day, week-to-week adjustment, and things constantly changing for us. I think when it initially shut down, in our heads we're like, oh, well, things will be under control. We'll run the Indy 500 in May. And so it's just a constant updating and communication, not only internally, but externally to our partners. And we were very fortunate as a team with the sponsors and partners that we had, that they were very understanding and stayed committed. And we probably didn't have as large of an economic impact as some teams had, depending on how their agreements were worded or whatever. But it was definitely challenging. One, just making sure everyone was healthy, and then two, communicating and navigating how we were going to make things good with our partners. It was a big help that we were able to run the Indy 500 later in August. I think if we weren't able to get that race in, even without fans, which, back to our previous question, when it was empty, it wasn't the same. The fans definitely make the event in a large degree. But getting that race in went a long ways. It's our main event, Super Bowl, however you want to look at it. So getting that race in really minimized the impact for us. And then we were able to kind of get going again in the back half of the season. And I think we ran 11 of the 17 scheduled races. So we were able to do enough, and IndyCar and Penske, they did a really good job, managing to get enough in. And we ran some double headers and really adapted quickly to make sure that the teams were able to do enough to keep their partners happy, and it was successful. So hopefully we can just keep moving forward and stay on schedule and not have to go through something like that again.
Hopefully. Yeah, absolutely. I think we're all in the same boat there. And the desire to be able to actually get out and enjoy what is meant to be enjoyed in person in that atmosphere.
Exactly.
You just talked about. Can't wait. I want to take you back a little bit. I mean, and unpack something you said earlier. You talked about your college experience and sort of that compartmentalization. So I want to unpack that a little bit more. So when many, pursue their dream of becoming a professional race car driver, it begins, I think, at a young age, and for most, it cost them an opportunity of a college education, right? It didn't for you, though. As you said, having graduated from Butler University in Indianapolis. So how did that education help you in your profession, and how did you juggle school and racing during that period?
Well, first off, you're right. A lot of guys do end up sacrificing that phase of life and that opportunity to go racing, and that's really what I wanted to do as well. If I'm going to be fully honest with you all, my parents didn't allow that to happen. At the time, they still owned some of my race cars, and that was kind of the deal we had. If we're going to support you financially in this path, you're going to go to college. And I followed their advice and did it, probably with some resistance, but very much appreciate the foresight that they had, because I don't think that I would be in the position that I'm in now, having my own business and having been doing it for a decade. I don't know that would have been possible without that background and foundation. You develop so much as a thinker, and just really becoming an adult during that period of life. So I think it definitely changed my path. I went to Butler in large part just logistics. At the time when I was picking colleges, I wanted to be close to home, not so much to be close to my house so my mom could do my laundry. It was more so I could be close to my race cars. But ended up having a great experience at Butler. Still have a lot of connections there, and stay involved at some level the way I can. But it definitely was a big part of my career, and really, a lot happened from my last days at college. A couple weeks before I graduated, I won the Freedom 100 and Indy Lights race, which is the series right below IndyCar, which opened up a lot of opportunities for me in IndyCar. I met my wife days after I graduated and graduated college. So it was a really formative couple weeks for my life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fact that, you clearly had a good handle, because you won that Indy Lights race right after, just weeks after graduating. So that was really good. And of course.
Yeah, everyone knows how your last semester goes of college. I had front loaded my workload, so I had a pretty easy finish. I coasted in.
Awesome. Well, last question for you, Ed. And so the 2022 IndyCar Series season is just 12 days away, with the Grand Prix of St. Petersburg on the streets of Florida City scheduled for Sunday, February 27th. Can you give us a season outlook for you and the team?
I'm very excited to get the season started. It's been quite cold in Indianapolis, and we're ready to head south. And St. Pete's typically where we started. I'm actually in Florida. We're in Sebring right now. Pretty much every team in the series has been here over the past 2 days testing. So looking forward to it. Each off season, us and every other team, we do a lot of work. It's where we do our development and really try to improve and shore up weaknesses from the year before. So I feel like we had a really good off season, and that first race weekend is when you get your first glimpse of whether or not we've done a good job or not with the areas that we focus on. So excited for that. We have the same driver lineup as last year with Renus VK, Connor Daly, and myself. So happy about the continuity and feel good about the work we've done, and just ready to get on track and hopefully win some races.
We're excited about it, and we wish you all the luck, Ed. And I'm going to pass it on to Donica.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ed and Shamlan. Thanks for that very insightful discussion. Ed, it looks like you've made some really smart driving and business decisions over the course of your career. And you've also helped NTT Data explain the smart city solution, which we're delivering for the city of Las Vegas. And that's a perfect transition into our next portion of the agenda.
Did you know that the city of Las Vegas is one of the fastest growing and most visited places in the U.S.? Given its continued growth and popularity as a destination, Las Vegas wanted to improve situational awareness and responsiveness to public safety issues. The city also wanted to drive innovative solutions in the area of mobility and economic development. The city engaged NTT in partnership with top tech companies to deploy a smart edge network of HD optical sensors, sound sensors, IoT devices, and micro data centers to boost visibility and support better response decisions. That network has led to the building of a foundation for a more connected, smarter city. Together, we do great things.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Bennett Indart, and that is a great segue to the guest I have with me. Smart technology and its application in the public sector to support cities, counties, and their citizens. So thank you, Ed. That was fantastic. Let me introduce them to you now. Chris Craig is the Deputy Information Technology Director for the City of Las Vegas. He's a visionary leader who continuously thinks outside the box to solve complex problems. He's extremely passionate about all forms of technology, but 3D printing, robots, and virtual reality hold a special place in his heart. He enjoys seeing the many ways technology can be used to improve everyday life for all. So, welcome, Chris. Joining Chris with me today is Bob Leek. Bob is the Deputy Chief Information Officer at Clark County, Nevada, which includes the city of Las Vegas. He has over 25 years of leadership experience, including almost 20 years in information technology disciplines. His leadership at Clark County supports the public services, including health, human services, justice, public safety systems, and administrative programs, achieving positive outcomes in diverse communities. He is accountable for internal service teams providing application technology solutions to the county. Welcome, Bob. So welcome to both of you, and thank you for joining the discussion today. Let's start with a kind of a general question to both of you. Smart technologies is an expression widely used in circles today. Give me your definition of smart technologies and how you're leveraging smart technologies today to support the citizens and businesses in your jurisdictions. Maybe we'll start with Chris.
Thank you, Bennett, and thank you for having me today. We really appreciate the opportunity. You know, smart cities can be described as many different things all over the world, depending on how you're implementing the technologies and the partners you have and the solutions that are at your doorstep. At the City of Las Vegas, we look to increase citizen engagement through the sharing of information to the public. We want to make sure that the information we're giving them is fair and accurate. And we also look to improve operational efficiencies across the board with our internal departments so that we can better utilize the citizen dollar and make it go further for them. And we also look to create safer environments for our communities, either at our parks, in our athletic facilities, in our community centers, et cetera. And it really just boils down for us to solving challenging problems, especially around sustainability and trying to tackle the homelessness problems that we have.
Oh, okay, that's nice. Thanks for that, Chris. Bob, do you have anything to add around the way you guys are using the smart technologies in the area?
Yeah, we can build off of that because the collaboration between the city and the county is one of the most important features that we feel to meet the needs of the residents here. With 2.5 million people that live in the area, that's makes us one of the largest areas in the country. So I took a little bit of a different spin on this. I went out and asked the people that I interacted with over this past weekend and said, "What does smart technologies mean to you?" And they delivered some pretty good statements. So they felt that smart technology delivers insights, enables better decisions with more data, enables more interaction and control, helps us connect the work that we do to the needs that they have, and would move us in local government to be more proactive in our ability to provide services. We also found that in order to deploy smart technologies, you need a lot of smart people. And so I'm really glad that we've got a great team here at the county, and I know the city has a stellar team of people as well. So smart technologies take smart people. But in the eyes of the public, one theme that I heard is, this thing about smart cities and smart technologies, it almost makes it seem like it's something special or something out of reach for most of us. And what they really want and expect from us is to meet their basic needs. And so the application of smart technologies to meet people's basic needs, that's where the fundamental underpinning comes for us here at the county, and I know at the city as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting kind of take on it, and I like the fact that you talk to the citizens and the folks that you're supporting out in your areas. I think one of the interesting things that I've always brought up around smart tech and smart cities in particular, or really just smart environments, is the use of data. There's so much data available today in everything we do. from our smartphones to building entries and just living our lives. We're interacting with all kinds of different devices and sensors in the environment, and they're collecting data. And that data is being used for improvements in both citizens and their use of public services, or the way that public servants can provide better service and efficient service to those citizens. In a recent innovation study that NTT Data did with Oxford Research, half of the respondents said that they have not yet mastered using data to help inform decisions. So it's kind of, what words of wisdom would you give them about how to better leverage the data, being in the situations in the place that you are today within the city and the county, to help them make better and faster, more effective decisions? So maybe Bob, we'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think it's not surprising that half the people would say they're not quite sure they're using data to make better informed decisions. I think that's where the opportunity lies. Here at the county, we have a data program that we've launched over the past few months around a topic called data governance. And I think that's one of the more important things that an organization should consider, is how is it going to organize, manage, utilize, gain insight from, and protect and secure all this data that we have, right? We have dozens of transaction systems that are collecting data all the time across our almost 40 departments. Each one of them is uniquely tuned to do what it's designed to do. And whether that's providing housing assistance or rental assistance or food assistance programs, whether we're delivering services on behalf of the state, whether our county programs that we design achieve the outcomes that they need, all of that is generating all of this data. And we want to first and foremost reassure people that we take the responsibility to protect that data very seriously. And so privacy, security, only using the data for the purposes that it's intended, those are all parts of our core data policies. But to really gain insight is the mastery of collecting all of that data and correlating it together toward the outcomes that we seek. We design every program to benefit someone. How do we ensure that we're achieving those outcomes? Well, we need to pull that data together, look at things from an outcome-based perspective, and then drive that back into our programs. And we should stop programs that aren't achieving their outcomes. We should double down on programs that are doing really well. And all of that insight requires data. And so the partnership with an organization like NTT, we believe is going to help us carry that mission even more forward, so that we can use that data for those better outcomes.
Yeah, I echo those comments in all of my interactions, in the role that I play within NTT. Data is really important, but the privacy, obviously the security of that is very, very important, especially in the public sector setting. So Chris, we've been working with you quite a while, I think, from the NTT perspective, with the city of Las Vegas, more than 3 years now. And one of the things, that goes along with, as we were talking about data and data stories, and that outcome-based approach, I think is really important, because there is a lot of data, and you can get kind of tied up in the minutia if you're just collecting data for data's sake. And if you're looking at it from an outcome first perspective, and then looking then in that data that you have and the collection that you have for the information that you need to tell the story and to receive that outcome, is to me probably the most efficient way to do it. And so I'm interested in your approach now, having sort of been doing and working in this smart technology around the parks and the city and the crowds and things that we've been doing together.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And I echo what Bob said too, that you have to be strong with your data governance. And we have a lot of input coming in, and we have a bottleneck with the output, right? And to your point, you said the key word though, Bennett, is the story. And a lot of times I find that people aren't asking the right questions that the data can supply the answer to. So we need to help guide them in the answers that they're looking for by helping define those stories and the questions that they're trying to ask. Many times they're not really sure what they are looking for. They just know that they need to solve this problem. But how do I ask the right questions? How do I roadmap the questions with the data to get to the resolution to that problem? And that's what we try to focus on. So the visualizations that come through on our dashboards and the metrics that we put together to create those data stories, all help that come together to answer the actual questions that they're looking to answer.
That's fantastic. That actually is a good segue to the sort of the next question that I was going to ask you both is, given your experience in working with smart technology and these use cases that you're developing, with the city of Las Vegas a little bit more mature now, working with the county and Bob and his team, what kind of outcomes have you seen, and how have those helped inform you on maybe making better decisions either with the city council or with some of the different departments that you had? Have you seen some of those come through so you're able to actually make better decisions or help inform policy, so to speak? So maybe Chris, we'll start with you.
Well, for us specifically, we started early on with some pilot programs in the traffic realm, just looking at wrong way driving, for instance, and gathering data on streets where we had a lot of incidences where there was a lot of left-hand turns on a one-way street that's supposed to be going to the right-hand direction. We've used information like that to help us identify where we should be putting street lights, possibly changing our signage, changing our ingress or egress of our turn styles and on corners. So pedestrian traffic has been very helpful for us too, just identifying how we should change our signal light timing for pedestrians across the road. A lot of opportunities there. With our park safety initiatives that we've been working on, just looking at crowd gatherings helps us identify, should we be sending marshal services to those areas on a sooner, more frequent base? Should we be patrolling them more frequently to increase public safety? It also works as a force multiplier for our public safety and our marshals, where they don't have to necessarily always be there, or we can send them only when we need to, which is extremely helpful. And it also leverages our opportunities to save resources and have them in more important areas of the city where they might need to be. So many endless opportunities. I could go on for hours and hours, but those are just some of the things that we've learned just working through our pilot programs that we do within our innovation district here at the city that's really helped and made a huge difference in our community.
Yeah, I think I like the more sort of the outcome that provides a more insightful, more efficient, and better use of resources, I think, is what you're saying in some of the cases. So Bob, anything to add to that?
Yeah, it's been great to leverage a lot of the work that the city has done working with NTT on the Smart Parks program. We're doing a pilot along those same lines. Our use case is around utilization of some of the assets that we have in one of the bigger parks here in Las Vegas, Sunset Park. The traffic study is an interesting use case, but as Chris said, it almost kind of becomes a little bit endless. What if we put a sensor in the bottom of a trash can that would tell a park maintenance worker that the trash can's full? So instead of just going around the park in a pattern and emptying half-empty trash cans, that we redistribute our resources to empty the trash cans that are full, or providing an online access to whether a barbecue station is available or being utilized or not. So those are some real practical things that we plan on doing with this type of sensor technology and connecting to the public. But beyond that, I think the possibilities also manifest themselves at the end of the day in what is it that we do at a county. And so one of the key things that we do is around business licensing and permitting. And so when I talk to folks about how do you feel the permitting process is going, what I get back is typically, well, I don't know where my permit is in the process. We know where it is because it's flowing through a system that's been perfectly designed to end up with somebody with a permit in their hands. But to extract the visibility to that process and make it transparent, provide alerting for people so that it makes its way through those steps, and then looking at leading our opportunities to make the permit process faster and ultimately maybe even cheaper and better. That's where I think the real promise of applying some of these new technologies and the smart technologies, when we start with the end in mind. So what does a business owner want? They want their permit. And so what can we do to design a system and a method and transparency that will provide that to them in the best way possible? Because that's what they expect.
Yeah, fantastic. I was looking at the Q&A and I did see one that sparked kind of a question in my mind, one that I think is very applicable to some of the smart tech that's out there today, and interested in your thoughts on it. The UN came out with SDGs, and there's a lot of talk about sustainability and things like that in the environment today, and cities are right in the center of that. And I know that the connection between smart technology, public sector, services and things really kind of sparks that sustainability question. And I was wondering if there are any initiatives that you're currently working with or thinking about, or what's your focus on sort of advancing the sustainability of the Southern Nevada region, within City of Las Vegas and the county. Maybe Bob, we can go to you first.
Yeah, I think there were some news articles even over the past few days about the historic crisis around the drought, right? The worst drought in 1,200 years. That's as far back as the data goes, because that's the oldest trees that are in this area that they can study. And so the application of smart technologies with the Southern Nevada Water Authority are some simple things like 50% of the cost of a smart water meter for your home or your business can get covered. And so that's an area where the partnership exists, but getting the knowledge out to homeowners and making it easy for them to go get that device and install it and then rework their sprinkler systems to be able to do that. Because no one's saying that we don't want to have a great environment. We do want to reduce the things like non-functional grass that tends to have gotten installed, in the 80s, 90s, early parts of the 2000s. But really, the opportunity for everyone to contribute to sustainability, especially when it comes to water, I think is a huge and tremendous opportunity, and it's a great place where public and private partnership can come to life. And with these smart technologies, I just did that recently. I moved to Las Vegas less than a year ago. One of the first things I did was look at the sprinkler system in the house that we have and applied a smart water meter to that. And now I can run my water off of the phone. There's a chance for rain today, so I push the rain delay button. I mean, it's those simple things that will contribute to the possibilities of maintaining some aspect of sustainability in Southern Nevada.
So Chris, anything to add to that around the sustainability from the city's perspective?
Absolutely. Well, the city makes sure that any facility we put in, that we are carbon neutral when it comes to electricity generation. So we LEED standard buildings and all the new facilities that we build, and we generate all of our own electricity that we use at our plants. But we also are tightly controlled on our water systems. We're putting in smart water systems at our parks so we can make sure that we're not overwatering the grass. We are trying to remove as much grass in the medians and stuff that we're responsible for as much as possible, but you still want to have nice park areas for citizens to go and enjoy. So we want to make sure we're being responsible with the water systems there. So we're putting all those on new types of controllers and sensors to make sure that we're providing enough water, but not too much water, so we're not wasteful. Again, I talked about our electricity generation, and I think there's a lot more opportunities for environmental sensors down the road with the smart city initiatives, where we can keep control of our carbon monoxide and keep traffic flowing in certain directions and moving instead of sitting idle at intersections. There's lots of ways we can help keep things lowered through sensors and data collection in the future as well.
Well, that's fantastic. And if that's not an advertisement to come and visit Las Vegas and Clark County, I don't know what is. So I think we're about out of time. So I really want to thank you both for your time today. A very insightful discussion, and I look forward to seeing you soon. So Donica, back to you.
Thank you so much, Bennett. All that smart technology talk was very interesting to myself, and I saw quite a few messages in the chat of people who were intrigued by it. I almost hate to see it come to a close, but we're running short on time, and we did promise our guests that we would show them the highlights of Route 66 Highway in Arizona. Dan, are you ready to give us a tour?
I am, yeah. I was a little bit curious, though. Bob Leek is putting a delay on his sprinkler system. Can I get a red light delay so that I can get through all the lights as I'm driving? That's a little bit more apropos for me. So I was curious about that. Bob, we can talk after if you can make that happen somehow. Yeah, I'm more than happy to get you going. Here we are, Arizona, Route 66, my favorite state on all the 8 states of Route 66. A lot of people would think, well, you're from California. Maybe it should be California. No, there's no state like Arizona for Route 66. It looks the way people think of Route 66. You've got everything from the architecture to the different sort of topographies that you see. You get the petrified forest right there that you can see just off of Route 66. You've got the Grand Canyon, you've got the painted desert, you've got all these amazing things. And in fact, in the movie Cars by Pixar back in 2006, it was the stretch from Gallup, New Mexico to Winslow, Arizona that actually typified what they wanted that movie to look like for Route 66. And as you can see here, this is pretty much what Pixar did. So you're able to see all the backgrounds. And if you were to go to Disneyland today, to Cars Land, it looks pretty much like Route 66 in Arizona. So one of the most famous spots in Arizona is actually this one here, standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. Such a fine sight to see. There's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford, slowing down to take a look at me. And of course, that was the song that the Eagles sung about, Take It Easy. And that spot has so many people every day that stop in to get their photo taken on that famous corner. A little bit further down the street, you're gonna find the Meteor Crater on Route 66 in Arizona. Now, a lot of people think, wow, that was a big meteor. It actually wasn't. It was a fairly small meteor, but when it hits the earth at such a fast speed, it creates a huge meteor. And so you're looking about a mile right there into that meteor, but it wasn't really that big. Seligman, Arizona is probably the most famous city on town on all of Route 66, 534 people there. But it did a big thing. It created historic Route 66. When Route 66 was bypassed, there were two brothers, Juan Delgadillo, the owner of the Snow Cap there in Seligman, and Angel Delgadillo, who owns the barber shop there in Seligman. They said, if you bypass Route 66, known as America's Main Street, how can that be good for America? You can't bypass America's Main Street without hurting America. So they lobbied to the government. The government didn't listen. They put in the interstate, and Route 66 fell into decline until they started seeing at the state level, hey, we don't have any money because the tax dollars from all those businesses disappeared. And so they went back to Angel Delgadillo. There's his barber shop there, and they said, hey, now how there's Angel right there, 93 years old and still cutting hair at this point. How do we save this thing? And he said, you're going to create the historic Route 66 Association. People want to know why it's historic. They'll get out and they'll travel it. And at that point, you'll save the life of Route 66. And here we are, as I was telling you, one of those side trips, the Grand Canyon. Now, today, you'll go up from Flagstaff to get to the Grand Canyon through the national park. But it used to be that you were able to see, and it's still this way, as you travel Route 66, you can see the Grand Canyon from Route 66 without paying that fee to the National Park Service. You can see it on a clear day just off to the north of Route 66. So Grand Canyon, Painted Desert, Petrified Forest, these are all side trips off of Route 66. One of my favorite spots is a place called Supai, which is one of the most remote spots on all of Route 66. They still have to have their mail delivered by mule. And that brings us into a perfect segue into the Old West on Route 66. This is Oatman, Arizona. Oatman, Arizona is most famous for two things. It was a gold mining town, but today the mules that used to work those mines still walk freely through the streets of Oatman, Arizona. So as you can see, the cars just drive right on past them, and people are feeding alfalfa to them, and they're doing what they can to keep the Old West alive on Route 66. And they actually recently struck gold again there with new technology. That data is still working along Route 66 in a way that people are actually able to go back into the mines and start mining for that gold one more time. And here we are at the end. We're at the border. So that is a very brief view of Route 66 in Arizona, my favorite state along the way. Back to you.
Dan, always so exciting. And we always get so much knowledge. So you talked about side trips that you can take from Route 66 in Arizona. Are there any more that we should know about?
Yeah, there's a ton, more than what I probably have time to tell you about, but Monument Valley, if you're a fan of the old John Wayne Westerns, you can take that. It's about 2 to 3 hours north of Route 66, right near the border of New Mexico and Arizona. The Painted Desert, we talked about briefly. There's a small part of that you can see. The Petrified Forest, you saw pictures of that. It runs right through the Petrified Forest. The Grand Canyon, you saw pictures of that. My favorite one is actually Las Vegas, because there's some great history there. Las Vegas, you were able to access from Route 66 at Kingman, Arizona. So at Kingman, Arizona, you had what was called Highway 466. It was a highway spur that became known as the Mafia Loop. Basically, the mob would come down Route 66 until Kingman, and then they would go up what is today's Highway 93, and they would cross the Hoover Dam. They would come onto the Boulder Highway up to Fremont Street, the original strip there in Route 66, and then over to today's current strip and back south into Barstow. So at Barstow, you reconnect with Route 66. or you can stay on 466 and take that right out to Palos Verdes, not Palos Verdes, but Paso Robles and the Pacific Ocean. And then you got a 2-hour ride south to my shop on the pier in Santa Monica. So there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do. But if you've not been to Vegas, you kind of have to do Vegas as you're traveling Route 66 as probably the most important side trip. And speaking of love and everything that just passed us here yesterday with Valentine's Day, that's a city that has so many different places to get married. You kind of have to include it in the conversation. So anybody that's on 66 today, there's a nice little detour for you to make that happen in your loved one's life.
Well, we can absolutely. You said if you haven't been to Las Vegas, I'd love to see in the chat who hasn't been to Las Vegas. I've been to Las Vegas, but never on the Route 66, like never off Route 66. So I feel like that's something else I need to add to my travel agenda.
So 466 isn't signed anymore. It's become Highway 93 and Interstate 15, and a lot of 466 has disappeared. So if you're looking to put that into your highway agenda, it's going to be hard to find. You won't find 466 anymore. But if you know that Highway 93 is adjacent and sometimes paving right over Old 466, you can take that right up to the Hoover Dam. Now the Hoover Dam today is closed to traffic, but when you're standing on the Hoover Dam, there is a road. You can drive on the Hoover Dam. That was 466. So the road over the Hoover Dam is 466. You can walk on either side of that today without much danger of getting run over by a car. But you can see the new highway from the bridge that's just in the distance as well. There's so much we could go all day.
I know, Dan. I know you always give us so much information, and it just makes me want to jump in my car every time we do one of these and just start driving. So thank you so much, Dan. And you did mention Las Vegas, which, you know, I like to think of as the city of love, which is, I know that's not what it's actually called, but, you know, lots of people get married in Las Vegas, right?
That's a fact.
And so I don't know, did everybody know that Las Vegas was one of the first states to legalize same-sex marriage back in 2014, which for our purposes today is the perfect transition. Because speaking of love, I want to bring Corie Pierce back onto the screen to share with us some of the love that NTT Data wants to give back to a special charity on behalf of their employee resource group, Pride. Corie, can you tell us a little about Pride and what NTT Data is doing to support diversity and inclusion?
Absolutely, I would love to. I'm so excited actually to be here to be able to represent NTT Data Services Pride Employee Resource Group as their executive sponsor. So as by way of introduction and as part of creating an inclusive culture at NTT Data, we've established 7 different employee resource groups. Pride is one of them, and they're all built to support inclusive and equal experiences for all of our team members and their families, and of course the communities where we all work and live. So Pride, the group members are made up about half LGBTQ plus community members and the other half are allies. And Pride's purpose is to promote equality for LGBTQ plus people through education and advocacy and empowerment and representation. So as you can imagine, that keeps us pretty busy. Just in the last year alone, we have participated in the Business Coalition for the Equality Act, the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index, and we promoted the addition of pronouns in our NTT Data email and social media signatures and our virtual meeting profiles. You probably can see mine next to my name right now. So speaking of Pride, I am really excited to say that just a couple of weeks ago, Human Rights Campaign named NTT Data a best place to work for LGBTQ plus equality. So we earned that by scoring a perfect 100 on the Corporate Equality Index, which is published annually as a benchmarking tool on corporate policies and practices and benefits that are important to the LGBTQ plus community. So that recognition means so much because it's really a huge testament to the priority that NTT Data puts on inclusive benefits and culture. And I'm just so proud of the work that the Pride team did to contribute to receiving that award. But what I'm really here to announce today is that another way we work to be a force for positive change is to support organizations that align with our diversity and inclusion goals and mission. And to that end, and in keeping with Valentine's Day and to show our love to the LGBTQ plus community, we are making a $5,000 donation to the Trevor Project. If you're not familiar with the Trevor Project, it's the world's largest suicide prevention and crisis intervention organization for LGBTQ youth. It offers counseling, resources, community. It's always free. So it's just an amazing organization doing such important work, and we are very honored to support them. So thanks for giving me a couple of minutes to talk about Pride and about the Trevor Project, and I'll pass it back to you, Donica.
Wow, Corie, thank you so much. That is awesome. I just love the way that NTT Data, throughout this whole Route 66 series of events, has always given back to charities. It's really amazing. So it feels appropriate that we're highlighting Pride right after Valentine's Day, so we can continue celebrating love for all. What a great way to end this event. So I believe that the HOT team is going to add the link to the March registration. And, you know, we do know that time has sped by and it's time for us to wrap up. I do want to point out a couple things that are in the chat. Bob Leek said he is happy to host anybody who wants to visit Clark County, Nevada. So if anybody wants to take Bob up on that, I know it sounds really good to me. I always love to have somebody when I'm visiting somewhere who knows the city. So maybe I can, you know, do something a little different than just going to the Las Vegas Strip next time I'm in Nevada. So thank you, Bob, for that offer. And I want to mention that at the beginning, we did ask people to drop in the chat if they had purchased or received any smart items for Valentine's Day. And Jason in Plano said that he purchased a smart scale for his wife and that he is still in the doghouse. So I don't know if anybody has any suggestions, smart suggestions of how Jason might be able to get out of the doghouse for that smart scale he bought for Valentine's Day, but I thought that was definitely worth mentioning. So we hope you will join us next month on our next Route 66 digital transformation journey as we talk about the data drive experiences and how to turn customers into your biggest fans. We will be joined by the president and CEO of Penske Entertainment, Mark Miles, IndyCar VP of Marketing and Brand, S.J. Leake, and IDC Program VP and Analyst, Alan Weber. Dan Rice will also take us through stops along Route 66 in California, which is his home state. And our team is dropping that registration link into the chat, as I said before, so you can go ahead and sign up. Now, let's end with a quick video recap of the entire virtual Route 66 Digital Transformation Event Series.